guys. Welcome back to the Left of Straight Show Interviews, the premier podcast that shares the stories of our amazing LGBTQ community and, of course, fantastic straight allies, all from entertainment, foodies, books, music, and advocacy. I'm your host, as always, Scott Fullerton, and let's start talking. All righty, friends, we are back, and today I'm so excited to welcome a true pop culture aficionado, a man who's dedicated his career to blending humor, entertainment, and insightful commentary on the worlds of film, television, and music. Frank DeCaro's in studio with me. He's been a longtime voice in radio, delighting audiences with his wit, charm, and deep love of all things retro. He's also the author of several celebrated books, including Drag, Combing Through the Big Wigs of Show Business, and his latest new release, Disco, Music, Movies, and the Mania Under the Mirror Ball. This new book's a vibrant exploration of the 70s disco era, capturing films, music, and the cultural impact that made the genre unforgettable. Today we'll dive into this illustrious career and his passion for disco and how this new book came together. But first, take a look.
Hi, Frank just reminded us. So you were the Sopranos correspondent for TV Guide magazine?
I'm an Italian from New Jersey. Of course I am. I was, yes.
I love it.
I had lunch with Andy Warhol.
Oh, wow.
I was in Detroit writing for the Detroit Free Press. Mr. Warhol, you have managed to stay on the forefront of the art avant-garde for decades now. How have you managed to do that? And he said, I don't know. And I asked something else, and it was another two-word answer.
Right.
And I thought, oh my God, I'm dying.
Right.
And I thought, what am I going to do? You know?
Right.
Oh, what the hell? And I said, is it true that Paul Morrissey and Lou Reed have AIDS? Because that's what I heard.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, no, where would you think of that? And suddenly we started to gossip.
Right.
And it became New York gossip, and we gossiped for an hour.
Fantastic.
And it was really great. And of course, there is not a photograph. In those days, journalists didn't do that. You were supposed to be respectable. So you never you never played the fan ever.
Right.
You had to sort of act like I'm not that impressed, even though I'm dying
Right.
because it's Andy Warhol.
Frank DeCaro, welcome back to the show, my friend. It's been like years since I had you in Palm Springs. How you been?
Oh, it's been 5 waist sizes. It's been lots of things since then. I know it's been good. It's been an awful lot of fun, and I mean, other than that sort of COVID moment there, but nobody enjoyed the shutdown more than I did. I watched TV. I read. People were like, "You are having too much fun during this," and I was like, "There's nothing to do, so I can finally." Binge things till 4:00 in the morning and not worry about it. I didn't hate it.
I was living for the cake of the day and the little bakery things we were having, and oh my goodness, vicariously.
But you eat enough cake, you become the enemy of furniture. I mean, suddenly you make a turn and the leg breaks off. But you got to really watch it. But we had fun. I cooked, I baked, I read. We watched Downton Abbey. Oh, we'd never seen it. Okay.
Really?
We watched the whole thing and the movies in like an hour and a half. It was just like, keep going. It was deranged. We had a great time. So,
yeah,
and we didn't fight. My husband and I didn't fight. I know. I know.
Together that long? How do you do that? Oh my goodness.
You have 2 separate offices. That's a good thing. You got to hide a little bit. Mostly it was no. We do well together, and even in a 2-bedroom apartment, So, but it did help that it was a 2-bedroom apartment. I have to say, if we lived in our New York apartment, which was small, which we lived. When I tell people, I said, I mean, I am a big person. He's no slouch either. And a dog in a full-size bed for like 19 years. Okay. It was like, that's deranged. But then we said, okay, if we lived in that apartment, we'd have killed each other. And if we lived in the apartment before this one, we'd have fought all the time because there was only 1 bedroom. And because there were 2 bedrooms, which meant 2 offices, we could go hide. And so that is why we did not fight. So,
There you
and
go.
you can always go cook. If you're a good cook, you can kind of get out of anything. You've done, any stupid thing I ordered on Amazon that I shouldn't have been spending money on, I could go like, and yet lasagna, so it's, you can't, you couldn't get that mad at me for every pop figure and every Barbie doll dressed as Stevie Nicks or whatever the hell I was buying. But anyway, so that was how we made it. But
Well, I love and it reminds me of the old pup. I'm so sorry you lost your pup, but how's the new pug doing? Are
oh
they?
my God, we have a new pug who her gotcha day is October 17th, and that's 1 year anniversary. I cannot believe it. It's 1 year and 4 pair of shoes, a shirt. I'm trying to think what else she's destroyed even just recently. You forget what having a puppy is like, because I hadn't had a puppy in 25 years. I mean, I had dogs the whole time, a dog the whole time, but Herman was the only pup I ever had. And then Gabby came to us at 3. Gabby wouldn't destroy anything. Gabby was, you could leave food on the floor, she wouldn't touch it. She was
Nobody
just,
was so attentive and just loved just looking, just observing life. Loved it.
she was a doll. And Penelope now is, she and her brother, who we know her brother as well, they should just be called Search and Destroy, because the two of them are just maniacs. They're nuts. But I love her so much. And there's dog hair on everything now. I never had a pug before. I always had a dark colored dog. So you could wear, if you wear a lot of black, you kind of, nobody cares because there's no shedding, or if there is, no one can see it. With this one, you look like a coconut square. It's just anytime you lie down, there's dog hair all over you. That's an old Dame. That was a Dame Edna joke, by the way. In case there'll be one queen who's like, I know where he got that line. Yeah, Dame Edna said that her daughter. There's an old Dame Edna joke. And if you don't know, this is why I wrote the drag book. But Dame Edna said her house was that her daughter's house with the dogs was so dirty, you could drop a brownie and pick up a coconut square. It was just because there was dog hair everywhere. Isn't that gross? Anyway, I always thought that was fun. But yeah, but you learn to live with things. So.
Well, it's a whole different. I mean, a pug's a whole different animal too. I mean, you can walk if you want to go on walks. It's like, okay, we'll walk a half a block, then I'll carry you for the other. They just run out of breath, the poor little thing.
No, well, she's only part. She's only 49% pug, and then she's got a bunch of other stuff in her, including 7% super mutt, according to the DNA test. Super mutt, isn't that good? No, she's a maniac. No, she wants to go forever. She likes the rain. She walks in the rain. I never had a dog who would leave the house in the rain. She's like, this is the best. Let's play in the puddles. And it's like, oh, Daddy's old. Leave me alone.
Goodness.
So, but she's so cute. Oh, it's just this maniac dog.
I love it. Well, Frank, we've been having you on. I mean, I think the first time was when all the whole OutQ thing was blowing up back in the day. You've had such a diverse career in media, from radio to writing now. What was your initial draw into entertainment? Remind my listeners, what kind of got you in entertainment back in the day?
I was a journalist to begin with. I studied journalism at Northwestern, and I was a newspaper man, believe it or not. I even covered a murder-suicide one time. And I was just like, people are like, are you because I'm usually like, now here's my lunch with Dolly Parton. That's usually my kind of story. But I did a lot of it, crime. I did late cops when I first started out for a little while. You do a little bit of everything. And I was doing that, and then a series of newspapers, all for a long time. And then I started this gay column at New York Newsday, which was the first out gay humor column in a major daily newspaper. So I started this column. It was either called Frank's Place or Being Frank. I don't remember. I've always done every version of Frank. I think it was called Frank's Place. And I was doing that, and then 3 years later, the newspaper folded. And I became a freelance magazine writer. So I worked for Martha Stewart Living for a while and stuff. Yeah, I had a lot of fun. Newsweek, Vogue. I did a bunch of stuff. And I was writing for a humor magazine called Spy. And people who don't know Spy, it's a legendary humor magazine out of New York. And they're the ones who coined the term for Donald Trump, short-fingered vulgarian was what they called him. And it always gets mentioned for that. Anyway, so I was writing for them. And the editor I was working with ended up going to The Daily Show. And so there was a show no one was watching. Craig Kilborn was the host. It was on Comedy Central. And he said, come on and talk about movies. And suddenly I became the movie critic on The Daily Show. And I did it, I think we counted like 170 appearances, some crazy number of appearances on there. And with Craig for 3 years, and then with Jon Stewart for 3.5 years. So that sort of got me into the performing bug. And then a year later, I got the show on Sirius. And you know that terrible expression where they say the velvet coffin, where you're so comfortable, even if you're dying, you're still it's like, oh, it's comfy here. So for 12 years, I did this this radio show with the woman I now say is my friend Doria Biddle. Even though on the Friday we met on a Friday and we're on the air together on a Monday, and we'd never met. We couldn't be more dissimilar. I mean, our take on things we are the natural. If I say black, she says red. You know, I mean, it really is. We are totally
makes radio magic half the time. But yeah,
it was good. We ended up having fun because she is. This is the kind of thing. This is the way I explain it to people, because this is the way I can understand it. I am someone who, if like my birthday's next month, okay, somebody sends me a present on Halloween, even though my birthday is the day after Election Day, and all I want is Kamala Harris to be the president. That's all I want for Christmas. For my birthday, rather, and for Christmas, and forever is really what I want. So from now for the foreseeable future, that's all I want. But I'm like, if something comes on Halloween and your birthday is November 6th, you open it on Halloween. It's like, you know, if something comes, why would you put off joy? You know, there'll always be more presents, you know, and if there aren't, you order them yourself, you know, so I just don't get that. She is the kind of person where I can't. You could send her something and say, oh, don't open until Christmas, and she won't open it until Christmas. It's like, are you deranged? And she doesn't like pie. Okay, who the hell doesn't like pie? Pie is the universal joy on a plate. Okay, it is pie is pie. So anyway, but I love her to pieces. But we could not be more dissimilar. I am the more is better. And she's less is more. You know, I'm always like, more is more of every. Oh, what do you want more of? I want more. You know, I guess so yeah, I like excess, and she likes just enough. You know, and so
you guys were so good together. It was so much fun.
Yeah, it was fun. I'm very fond of her. I hate her and I love her. You know, and I think she feels exactly the same way. I think she hates everything I stand for, and she's, you know, so. But no, I'm very fond of her. I do more than anything. She's fun to sit next to in a bar, because after Gay Pride, we go to Cicconi's and we sit in this restaurant. We sit at the bar and get kind of drink until you need to get me an Uber. You know, it's fun. I look forward. That's become our Pride tradition now. As we go and after the parade in LA, or in West Hollywood, we go and sit at the bar in Cicconi's and knock back a few drinks.
If my addition subtraction math is correct, this is book number 6. I mean, I remember I started with the cookbook because I'm a huge foodie fan, and that was like book 2 or 3, I think, maybe. But now we're at book number 6, right? Welcome.
Yes.
I mean, I knew you lived in New York and New Jersey for a long time, so it makes sense, but I just did not picture you as a person interested in disco. Tell me what brought this interest on.
Well, I am the book or the interest in disco, because I can tell you they're different answers. Disco. Why I love disco. I was a trendy little kid, and I thought the music was just amazing. The people always say, well, what's the first moment you think of with disco? And I think I was about 12 years old. And in the 70s, if you were a kid in the 70s, you did every craft ever. You made candles, you made crayons, you did needlepoint, you latch hooked rugs. And I was sitting in a ceramic studio, and not the ghost kind where you're building, you know, you're sculpting and throwing pots. It was that stupid suburban idea where you're sitting there painting, you know, right, Christmas trees to put plastic bulbs, which I love. But you know, so we were doing things like that, and Rock the Boat came on the radio. Rock the boat, don't tip the boat over, rock the boat. And that was the first sort of disco moment, and I was like, what is this? This is amazing. And then I just always sort of liked to dance. Even when I was a kid, I liked all 60s go-go song, you know, anything that was, you know, could get you to dance in the 60s. when I was really little. So the disco stuff just really appealed to me, and I was trendy, and I thought the people looked really chic, and it was very New York City centric in a lot of ways with Studio 54 in my late, that was my teen years. Not that I ever went there, but it was like I was someone who was like, I am moving to New York as soon as I'm old enough, and so it held this allure for me. In terms of wanting to write a book about it, part of it was that I did have that experience and that deep-seated love, because you sort of, for me anyway, I like to look for something that I have something to say about and have genuine affection for and want other people to be enthusiastic about. But in a more serious way, it came because I did the drag book. And the drag book, people I talked to and interviewed, and even in people I interviewed on panels afterwards, said they were so happy to be taken seriously. Because they said, yeah, there's a lot of drag around, but we're always the handful of glitter or the snarky presence that's on the side, the little lagniappe, the little something extra. And they said we're the parsley, we're never the entree. And they didn't really get there. One I don't know what the term the terms changed so soon. She was a cisgender woman who did drag.
Okay.
And I don't even know what that's called anymore because things change so much. But she got a little weepy. She said, no one's ever asked me about my art and my performance. And she said, they just ask stupid questions. And she said, she got a little weepy because she said, you're taking me seriously. And that had a big impact on me. And then one of the reasons disco seemed important to me was, first, it's a queer story without it being a queer story necessarily. It is the story of people of color, women, strong women, often strong women of color, and the queer community coming together and making this genre and enjoying this genre and making this music of empowerment. So that was very appealing to me. And also disco I came of age with disco sucks looming over you. There's a little kid in the book that I quote. He was written up in the New York Times, and he said, "Yeah, I love disco, but I did get beaten up at high school, for it." And and he's like, "But I still love it." And he was a little kid on Long Island, and there's a section on teen discos, and somebody had interviewed him in the late '70s, and in the New York Times, I think it was. So I quote him, but I was that little kid, you were called the F word because you liked disco or whatever you like that wasn't, something that came with a black T-shirt that said, Molly Hatchet or whoever, I don't know, just pick a name on it. Were made fun of. And so that made me want to tell it as well. I wanted to sort of give these folks the respect they deserve, because if YMCA is a good enough song to be in the Library of Congress, and when you make a list of really good disco songs, you're in the hundreds, then how can disco suck? And how come every time you go to a bar mitzvah or a wedding or a communion party, whatever you go to, if there's a DJ, you're going to hear disco music, and the crowd is going to go crazy.
And
so if
everyone's
it's
on the dance floor, exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
So why would it be something that disco sucks? And so I wanted to sort of explore that and kind of Febreze its reputation, if you will. Make it, just say, you know what, that's on you. And it's, what do they say? Disco doesn't suck, you do. Or you just can't dance. Those are the two versions you always see on a button. Sometimes. But yeah, it was important to me to say it's okay to like this. But that's the way I think young people feel about all music now. It's okay to like anything, because you can download anything. You can, you could sit and you can go on, a streaming service. I mean, if I'm old fashioned, so I still like physical media, but even if I'm just downloading songs to my computer, you can do a 30s song and then do a 70s song and then do something that came out 2 days ago. And it's all the same thing. It's all a downloadable file. So it's this great democracy of music. And and you can like all of it or none of it, so it's kind of, and all of it, but liking all of it's better, or a little liking the best of all of it is the best of all of it.
I'm living such nostalgia today. I have you on now and Disco. I was my time. And then I talked to John Garrison, another author earlier today who just wrote about Red Hot and Blue, the Cole Porter songs. And it's so true. We talk about the same thing, how Gaga today introduces Tony Bennett of before, and you have all these different artists that are influenced. Who do you see influencing today from the disco? Are you able to kind of make those correlations to music?
Oh, I do. At the end of the book, I mean, I really do. And it's not to say that modern people are derivative in any way. But if you listen to Lizzo sing About Damn Time, you might as well be listening to a Chic song. I mean, Chic is in the DNA. Nile Rodgers is in the DNA of that song. You just can hear it. Dua Lipa, whom I adore. You put a Dua Lipa song on in your car, you're as happy as could be. You don't really get her without, say, Donna Summer. It's really, these songs keep, when I watch which dance track she's coming out with next, on the radio, it was kind of when Donna Summer was having her moment, and you'd be like, my favorite Donna Summer song is Once Upon a Time. Then it would be my favorite Donna Summer song is Last Dance. No, wait, my favorite Donna Summer song is Bad Girl. Nope, it's Dim All the Lights. It's, and he just would keep going. And I think with Dua Lipa, it's like, oh, I love that one. The first, there's the Barbies. Oh, that's good too. Oh, wait, Houdini. Now there's it's Illusions or whatever the name of the new one is. And I thought, I'm doing it again. Every time there's something new, it's like, oh boy, this is my new favorite. I think a lot of that. I do playlists in the book, and I think there are songs that are not technically disco that scratch the itch. I think that Robin song Dancing on My Own, I don't think it's strictly disco, but from however many years ago but oh my God, that is one of those, you put that on, if you can stay seated during Dancing on My Own, you're dead. You might as well just check your pulse, call the EMT. It's the same feeling as when you'd hear At First I Was Afraid, I Was Petrified. You'd be like, well, gotta get up now. It's like, gotta go dance to this before she gets to the fast part. You better be on that dance floor. So.
Well, talk about the research process for this. I mean, one of the things I love, like you were saying about Wigs, your Big Wig book and everything, is you talk to such great people. I mean, you and your husband both, Jim will talk to 8,000 people for his book. You really kind of hone in on people, but disco's been a bit. How are we finding the people? I think you did like 14, 18 interviews or something for this book, or Q&A?
Of the Spotlight. And I certainly interviewed more than that for background, I think I had that many probably in the Studio 54 chapter, just, in there. But yeah, I wanted to see how many disco superstars I could get. And coming out of coming out of a background that was pop culture and not strictly music, I didn't have the contacts. I mean, the drag book was really like my phone book. It was either I knew the drag queen or they knew the drag queen. If you didn't, I could call Jackie Beat if I didn't know somebody, and she could put me in touch with them. So it was a lot of that. With this, it was different, and it was more of a challenge. But once you start, and there were moments where you're just like, I'm not going to get anyone I want for this, and it would break your heart, But then it'd be, I remember the day I spoke to Gloria Gaynor's person, and they said, oh, Gloria said, here, just give you her number. Here, call her. And it was just like, I love you, Gloria Gaynor. So it was, and a lot of it started, I called Felipe Rose from the Village People, my favorite Village person, one of my two favorites. And then David Hodo, who was the one we all had the hots for. He was the construction worker back in the day. And he was having back surgery or something. So and for a journalist, you feel bad for them, but you swoop in. You're going to be lying in bed. You can talk. And so he was like, sure, I'll do the interview. So I did the interview with him as well. But then it was like, then Thelma Houston said yes, and Franz Jolie said yes. And somebody put me in touch with, I had interviewed him at Sirius back in the day, but they put me in touch with Andy Bell from Erasure, because I thought someone needed to talk about how the first wave of out gay, mostly British singers adopted the diva songs and made them their own. And Jimmy Somerville and Pete Burns from Dead or Alive. But the first Dead or Alive song was a cover of "That's the Way, I Like It." Right. So they were doing Casey and the Sunshine Band in their first album. So I thought that was fascinating that in Europe there was not a disco sucks backlash in the early 80s. And that was when people say, well, what did you discover that you didn't know? The idea that the new wave people, Duran Duran, the folks that really became our idols in the 80s, all talked about the debt they owed disco. And we didn't hear that in America. You know, the guys, the large, and here's where I point fingers, the largely straight white male rock writers were happy when Disco Demolition Night happened in 1979. They were like, see, we were right. This music sucks. We can go back to real music now. And so we never heard that disco didn't end in other parts of the world, that it just, you know, I mean, the Village People movie was a huge bomb in America. It was a huge success in Australia. The Village People's biggest radio hit in Italy was on the album where they all dressed up like Adam and the Ants with, you know, Renaissance, and they looked like they were refugees from a Renaissance fair instead of the gay archetypes. They were trying to find a new persona, which was horrible. But you know, they had this huge hit in Italy after that, and you know, nobody told it. You didn't read stories about how new wave. One of the performers, they said it was disco for depressed people, and I was like, that's brilliant, you know. But they acted like disco was this awful anomaly that had to be stamped out. And that's the serious side of this book, is because there are, you know, I am not someone who screams homophobia, racism. You know, I'm not always pointing a finger about that everyone's horrible and doing these awful things. But you know what? I look at when you look at the evidence, disco sucks was, as someone in that wonderful Bee Gees documentary, How Do You Mend a Broken Heart? He said it was a racist, homophobic book burning. And I'll throw in sexist and misogynist, because I think that people hated that it was about powerful women and queer people and people of color, and straight white men were being displaced. They really, and you know what? They were. So it's not like they were making it up. They really were. They were not finding the chart success unless they were making disco songs like Miss You by the Rolling Stones, or Do You Think I'm Sexy by Rod Stewart, or Kiss doing I Was Made for Loving You. They were forced into this genre to remain relevant because nobody cared about rock in that moment. Right. So their worries, they should have cooled their jets and realized that they'd have their moment again. But they were scared. And I thought it was interesting. So one of the guys who put together Disco Demolition Night, which was this horrible event in Chicago that I begin the book at, where they were blowing up records by black artists in between two baseball games. And it became a huge riot and stuff. The guys really were feeling that the women wanted them to not just look like whatever they looked like. Now they wanted them to look like John Travolta and dress nicely and be able to dance. And so straight women were asking more of their guys, or at least some of them. And so he said, yeah, they were kind of, this guy who organized it said, yeah, he said they were taking our women, which I think is kind of, that's the ultimate impetus for let's blow up things. It was like, oh my God, I'm not enough in my black t-shirt and beer belly. I sit here with one. But it was, they were looking for their men to be a little more interesting and take care of themselves. And, it was it is obviously an interesting time. And there's this documentary called Disco Soundtrack of a Revolution that was just on PBS over the summer, a 3-part documentary. Wonderful, wonderful documentary. But it really was. It was this moment where women were coming on strong, gay, the first disco, quote unquote, the Loft, which was sort of a proto disco that they built, that sort of set the template that Studio 54 and other places would follow, was less than a year after Stonewall. So, so you've got the women's movement, the equal rights movement, the queer movement moving along. So that's why disco means so much to me and so many other gay people and so many other women and people of color. It was our thing. So
yeah, I mean, it definitely, I think it was kind of a symbiotic relationship. I think disco influenced LGBT culture, and I think LGBT culture influenced a lot of disco when you look at it, right?
oh my God. I say in the book, one of my favorite lines is I say that it was this movement of women, people of color, and the queer community. And I said, and in the right outfit, Sylvester could tick all three boxes. He was so. And I mean, his songs are. I always say that "You Make Me Feel Mighty Real" is the gay national anthem. It's it's the people say, "Oh, it's I Will Survive." It's like, no, that's too down. That's that's like saying my life is terrible, but I'll survive. It's like, you make me feel mighty real. That's an anthem. It's I'm much happier with that as the gay national anthem. So.
Well, I love how you started the book too, because I kind of associate disco with liberation and celebration. And that's kind of what I think that era was a lot about.
Yeah.
And then you start with this controversy because there was controversy for it, but it really, when you break it down, there was not really the need to be.
I remember seeing the footage and thinking, oh my God, this is a MAGA rally crossed with a monster truck show, which is what I say in the book. And it's just ugly. It's like this riot based on toxic masculinity. And the parallels to today made me want to do the book even more. I mean, I was like, disco sort of was the first coming together of minorities, and the first very, I mean, I think a lot of the MAGA thing is white straight guys feeling displaced now. And that is what disco was making them feel 50 years ago. It was like, it's not about you. It's and they just went kicking and screaming. But as someone said, they said it took enough time, but they didn't win ultimately. I mean, it's like they said, what is everything about now? Diversity. It's like, what was and diversity and empowerment? What's disco about? Diversity and empowerment. So ultimately, disco won. But it's the same now. I mean, they're kicking and screaming. It's like they just can't accept that everybody's going to get a piece of pie. So they're like, no, my pie. It's like, no, not your pie. But it's I don't want to make the book sound like a downer, though, because ultimately it's a celebration of all the not only the brilliance of a lot of the music, but also the silliness of some of the excess, and so it's both, and I think, I mean, me, that's my whole take on life is that, we went, when we were doing Sirius, we went to a Dom Perignon party before when we were doing the show at night, so it was like the first year or two, and it was an event. They had never opened as much Dom Perignon as they did for this party. That's what I remember. Well, what did we do on the way back? We went to McDonald's and ate Big Macs. So it's like you're drinking the finest champagne and then you're like, yeah, I need a Big Mac now. I think life is like that. That is my take on life. It's like you should be, if you're lucky, and I am, you get to have both. You can have a fillet of fish and then, and caviar, for lunch and caviar at dinner. And it's like, you really, you deserve both and both are good. And, it's what Andy Warhol said, that the Queen of England is drinking the same Coca-Cola you are, it's Coca-Cola is, it's good is good no matter who you are. And it doesn't have to be expensive, for it to be perfect. And
was there any crazy behind the scenes story you came across during your research? Anything that was really fun and juicy that you didn't really you weren't looking for but just came across?
Well, it's juicy, but it's kind of in a weird way. So I was fascinated with the disco bandwagon. So I did a whole chapter called "Play That Funky Music, White Boy," and it was people who were making disco records who you wouldn't expect. Johnny Mathis, Frank Sinatra, Frankie Avalon, Martha Reeve of the Vandellas, had a skating in the street. But I found that Bill Cosby had done a disco album, and one of the songs was called Boogie on Your Face. And which I don't know. I mean, that's just, if it's a booger, it's gross. If it's worse, it's even worse. But so that was the one I was just like, Bill Cosby had an album called Disco Bill. And it's a comedy album, really, but it's just so funny to me that it was so pervasive. I mean, it's disco really infiltrated everything. Also, I discovered things like a 2-part episode of Hawaii Five-0 featuring Yvonne Elliman as the first Hawaiian singer that was going to make it big, on the mainland. And they had Bee Gees songs in it, that episode.
My favorite chapter of this book was all the television. I'm such a television nerd.
I know.
That was my favorite part of it. And I love this book. Oh my God, the embossed.
Yeah, they've made it. Oh, Rizzoli makes beautiful books. You always know you're going to be in good hands with Rizzoli. But they make a gorgeous coffee. And the back, you can do your makeup in the back of it. No, not really. But I was going to, I watched all that stuff.
It was great. I loved the television. That was my favorite chapter, I think.
I watched all of those things, and I watched all of the movies gladly. Nobody likes, my husband and I does not agree with me on this, but I am someone who I like bad movies. I like I like good movies and bad movies, but bad movies have an edge. And kitschy television, I love. So when there's a Barnaby Jones episode of Buddy Ebsen, this is how old he is. He was supposed to be the Tin Man in The Wizard of Oz in 1939. And here he is in the late 70s. And he is, decrepit, basically, doing the hustle with this woman at the end of the episode. There was a show,
Wonder Woman doing it. That was
Wonder Woman does it, and Wonder Woman dances with the guy who was the villain in Grease. The guy with the craggy face who was hot anyway, the blonde. They do their disco number. He won't take no for an answer from Wonder Woman on the dance floor. But there's an episode. There was a National Lampoon HBO special that I found called Disco Beaver from Outer Space, and it is rumored to be the lowest rated HBO special ever. Well, that's music to my ears. I'm like, oh my, get me a copy of this. So I watched that. I also found, this is also in your naughty, the salacious things you find. Okay, there is a movie that if you are a pervert and you go on the internet and you can find the whole thing, called The Night Bird. And I don't know if it's on like Xtube or one of the porno ones. It's the porno version sort of a Saturday Night Fever. Although I don't know if it's literally a spoof of Saturday Night Fever or not, but it is so bad and so wonderful at the same time. Not only is there explicit sex, like a guy spinning a record and getting a Hummer at the same time, which I think is hilarious. That poor woman down there. Well, I feel bad for her. But it has dialogue. There were the 2 times that I roared laughing. The first was the guy walks in, he goes, "Oh my God, the place is beautiful." And I swear to you, the disco is tinfoil and Christmas lights. It looks like someone with Reynolds Wrap and dollar store Christmas string of lights. And oh my God, it's beautiful. And it was, oh yeah, it's beautiful. So that made me laugh out loud. But the best dialogue was these 2 sort of tough guys who end up getting it on with women in the movie. He says to these 2 women, "You said you was lesbians. Prove it." Okay, and then they do. I laughed. That is my favorite. I wish I had cause to say that in real life. You said you was lesbian, and then I'd want them to build me shelves. I mean, I don't want them to, but let's just say they don't build shelves in this movie. But they, isn't that a romantic way to begin a sex scene? You 2 said you was lesbians. Prove it. It's like that. That's why I love bad movies better than good ones, But and on all that disco, on television rather, it's just. There's like a Jeffersons episode called Every Night Fever, where George Jefferson and Helen Willis go to the disco and begin ignoring their spouses. There's a disco dance contest on What's Happening. There's an anti-disco episode of two-parter of WKRP in Cincinnati. It's kind of deranged how much is out there.
Love it.
And you try to I kept adding things, there are even some 2024 songs in the last playlist, I was getting those January, February releases and get them in the book. But I just saw there was a I don't know if it was a spoof or what, but Rod McEwen, that really sappy poet in the 70s, did a disco album, and it's a fist in a thing of Crisco, and it says disco in the font of Crisco, and that's the album cover. And I was like, that's not in my, and my husband looked at me, he said, good. And I said, no, I said, I would love for that to be in my book. And he said, yeah, it's good that you didn't know it existed until after the book went to press, because you'd totally put that in the book. I was like, yeah, this is funny to me. But yeah, it's those kinds of things, as much as, say the brilliance of I Feel Love, which is still the greatest disco song ever, with the Donna Summer composition.
So, I love how you really put in heart with all the, every project I've ever seen you do has the through line of your humor, but you really also bring the heart to it too. And I loved, there's just different sections of the book that really stood out with you could tell the love for it and the respect for it as well. So you did such a fantastic job, Frank. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You get me, Scott. You get me. No, I do. I try to bring heart to it, and I try to bring humor to it. I talk about how people, one of the little write-ups that makes me giggle is I talked about how Anne Margaret, the wonderful, I think Oscar-nominated actress, how she almost drowned in baked beans in the movie of Tommy, the Who's Tommy. She fell 20 feet and almost killed herself in Lake Tahoe on stage. And some people still said the disco album was the worst thing that ever happened to her. That makes me laugh a lot. I wrote it up that way. But yeah, it's got little giggles throughout the book. But it's also respectful. But I don't know if everybody understands that you are not making fun. To say a movie is terrible and you should watch it that makes perfect sense to me. It really is like, my husband head scratching when I said, he said, what did you watch? I said, I watched Roller Boogie and then Skate Town, USA. And he says, well, which was better? I said, Roller Boogie would have been better if it was worse. And I said, Skate Town, USA was worse, so really it was better. And I said, and they're both terrible, but you really do have to watch both of them. And so the more I explained why you should watch these movies, the more he just looked at me like, I'm glad you watched them without me. I was like, well, thank you. But yeah, no, and I still stand by that. Roller Boogie tries to be a good movie, and so it's terrible. And then Skate Town, USA is a terrible movie, and that's why it's wonderful. It's
you understand so bad it's good. You just
you have to really have to be able to. And honestly, I think that this is sort of the first disco book with the it's all good kind of quality appreciation, that you can know that Disco Duck is horrible and love it. It's like you can. And I always tell people, I said, and you kind of can't find the sequel. There was a sequel to Disco Duck that Rick Dees did called Disco-rilla. And it's like, you don't really hear much from Disco-rilla these days, But you only hear Disco Duck.
I was a big fan of Rick Dees back in the day, too.
Disco-rilla. But Flip Wilson, a comedian I loved, he would always say, he said, that's not a gorilla, that's a gorilla. And I was like, so Disco-rilla makes me giggle. But
well, Frank DeCaro, we got to start wrapping it up. The book.
No, I have all day. Let's just keep going.
We're going to have 5 questions with you next week, but check out this book. It's absolutely wonderful. Available now. So you've tackled.
You mean this book?
That book. You've tackled drag queens and disco. What's the next D word that's on Frank's list here?
What I'd like to do, and you have to sort of convince other people to let you do it. That's what it does. You honestly, you're starting from square one every time. You really are. It's like there is no, what do you want to do next, Frank? There's not that. And no one gets that. I mean, I've seen things where like Tina Fey will have the network say, no, we're not picking that up. And it's like, she just made you $1 billion. We let her do whatever she wants. But nobody gets to do just what they want. But if I could pick anything, I want to look at Italian Americana, and kind of in the same way that I looked at drag and disco, and sort of look at how Italian Americans have been portrayed in pop culture. That's my goal. That's my idea for the next book. Because I don't really understand. I mean, Columbus Day is coming up. I don't really understand why we've decided he is I think October something should be Giorgio Armani Day or Gianni Versace Day instead, or Michelangelo Day. There are so many other Italians I would pick before Columbus, but I'd rather them celebrate the TV show Columbo than Christopher Columbus. Even that would be fine. But
yes,
yeah. But anyway, so that's what I'd like to do next. But we'll see. It's whatever sort of they point me out, and they'll let me do. Isn't that terrible that you get the older you get, the more you're just like, oh, why can't someone just say, here, go play, go. We've seen these books; they're really good. Just go have fun. But it's never that. But we'll make it work. You always do.
There you go. Well, Frank DeCaro, it's always a pleasure to talk to you, my friend. I miss you and your hubby greatly, but remind everyone, the book is out, I believe, this week. Well, this is probably going to be a week after this aired. Good. October 15th is the official pub date. So I will be posting things and all about that. But honestly, it's between now and the beginning of the year. We may have something, a big event at the Grammy Museum in December. We're still working on that, where we'll have some folks in conversation but I have book signings coming up. It's everything. If you follow me at Frank DeCaro Show, you'll find it's there, particularly on Instagram. I've always got stuff on Instagram. And I can't believe I'm this old and I love Instagram. I spend so much time on Instagram. It's absurd. I curate, I make things, I put videos up. I do terrible. Anyway, waste of time. Love every bit of it. Love living vicariously through it. So keep up the good work. We're going to have special 5 questions with Frank next week, so be sure to look for that. This is a beautiful coffee table book. It's going to make a fantastic gift, so be sure to make this up. And it doesn't weigh 1,000 pounds. Usually a book this big weighs 1,000 pounds. They did something to make it right. I don't know.
Well, I said I want a thick volume that feels thin. No, wait, that sounds terrible. No, anyway, it's good. It's girthy. It's good. You'll like it. It's good.
I was going to let Rizzoli work on me. I like a thick book to make me thin. I like that. That works.
Me too.
All right, guys. We appreciate you tuning in every Wednesday and Thursday to Left of Straight Show interviews. Look for our 5 questions with Frank next week, and we'll see you next time. Have a great day.
Thanks for listening to The Left of Straight Show. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast distributor, and please give us a 5-star rating so more listeners can find us. You can follow us on social media, and be sure to check out our website for contests and other news and information. See you next week.